On the gate of the chet, now remember the chet is like the big white fence that was either round or rectangle, but nevertheless, it's the fence around the Mishkan, which is the word tabernacle, that in Exodus 25 or so, Moshe was told how to build because he saw the pattern, the tabanit, the pattern of the Mishkan was shown to him, revealed, or he saw into the heaven or whatever it was up on Mount Sinai. Yahweh gave Moshe the tabanit Mishkan, the pattern of the Mishkan. And he was told to have embroidery on the gate and colors woven into the various fabrics. So I'm suggesting that the colors represent concepts, represent letters, because letters represent concepts. So that the four colors are actually a name, an identification, written not with letters or with words, but in colors. So the colors are in English, blue, purple, red, white, and then it had gold. How might the mind of Adam, who is supposed to assign names to things, assign a value to colors? What does red mean? What does blue mean? What does purple mean? What does white mean? What does gold mean? Some have suggested that blue speaks of the authority of law. So cops wear blue. The sky is blue. Purple speaks of majesty or royal declarations. Red, well, blood, we get cut, you bleed red. Okay, so red blood speaks of humanity and humans being subject to life and death if they bleed too much. So we just associate these concepts with the colors. White, pure, righteousness, especially white linen. Gold, well, that's treasure, value, worth. Okay, what if we change the words into Hebrew? They're different words, so you have to think of them differently. It's a different mind. That's the whole idea of translations change things. Well, in the Hebrew text, the word techilet, or spelled taf, kav, lamed, tav, is what we call blue. Argaman, Aleph, Resh, Gimel, Mem, Nun is the purple. Shani, Shin, Nun, Yod, red. Laban, like Jacob's uncle, like the root of Lebanon, is white, Lamed Bet Nun, and then Zahav, or Zion Hey Bet, is gold. Now there's other words that are the same colors, other words for each of those colors, but those are the ones that are listed in the text for the embroidery. So now let's look at the spelling of those words that are those colors. Tav, Kaf, Lamed, Tav. TKLT, if you want. Tachelet. Every purpose is determined according to the signed contract. Whoa, where do I get that from? I thought it just meant blue. Kaf Lamed means all, every, each, or any. Call. If you put a tav in front and a tav behind, well, tabanit, that's the word for pattern. Beni, Bet Nun Yod, means my son. You put a tav in front and a tav in the back, and now you have the word pronounced tabanit, means pattern, paradigm, design. But it's my son in between two letters tav. So I'm reading into it. What does the letter tav mean? Well, the letter tav is like you sign a contract. And tav as either the beginning or the last letter, if it's basically a verb, it can put it into the past or the future, not present tense. So I'm staring at tav, kaf, lamed, tav. The signer mark, the tav, open hand, shepherd staff. Hey, that's like the Torah. And then another tav. So every purpose, that's all, every, kaf, lamed, that's everything, is determined. Well, that's lamed, that's the authority. According to the signed contract. Well, the signed contract, that's the terms of the Torah, the kaf, with two letters tav, like there's two signers, signatories. This side and that side, is you need two parties in a contract. So I can look at tav, kaf, lamed, tav, and say, I perceive that that means, or that says, but just look at the color blue, that every purpose is determined according to the signed contract. Well, if the contract's been nailed to the cross and done away with, if God changed the rules, if Israel is done away with and is no longer the apple of his eye, but Israel is determined to be filthy goyim infidels that are going to burn in hell as their destiny because they have reproached the sacred, then none of this matters. But if this is true, if the color blue, Tahilit, literally speaks that every purpose, not only under heaven, but including the heaven and the cosmos, every purpose out of the whole shebang is determined, calibrated, registered, affected according to the stipulations and terms of the signed contract between Yahuwah and Israel. Suddenly, all this is very important. All this really matters. And that signed contract fractally is dropped down into the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So as we ponder and study the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, we're studying the root affecting source of effect, ripples of ramifications of the entire universe, which then affects every human. And then the residual, you might say the next phase of what's coming in human history. That's a pretty big deal. The word for purple, Aleph, Resh, Gimel, Mem, Nun. Interwoven organization of paving stones, laying the way like a jigsaw puzzle. Everything's fit together. Shin, Nun, Yod, the word for red, is also the word that means second, tooth, difference, variance, duality. It also means to teach, and it also means disguised himself. Different or variant. Lamed-bet Nun, Laban, the word for white, means clarify, make bricks, like the paving stones, set ablaze, inflame, educate, and frankincense. This is right out of the dictionary. Gold, Zion Hey Bet, means this is given. So does this address the question? What question? We just said if Het was the answer, can we look at Zion as posing a question? What's the question? What's the answer? It's all philosophical. It goes back to the original question. What's going on here? Why does the universe exist? Who am I? Why do I exist? Where's this all coming from and where's it going? Why? Why not? What? Yeah, that's right. That's the question. Philosophers say are the big questions for all people throughout all time. So now I can take those same four colors and I'm going to re-express it in a slightly different way. Everything is built and will finalize as specified in the plan, the script, the agenda, the idea, the Aleph. It's a complex tapestry, a hyperdimensional puzzle, but the path through that puzzle is absolutely solid, trustworthy. Something is different, but the teaching cannot be. He disguised himself. Human life and death incite a zeal for righteousness, which yields success like a formula, an equation with intention. This is identified as the very thing you've been looking for. I just read those four colors in a different expression. I'm just reading blue, purple, red, white, gold. Again, say it slightly different. Blue. The one who made this place has a purpose and schedule of events in his hand. That's like Yod. Purple. Torah is the paved highway. Camino Real, there's California, the Royal Highway. Extreme in precision and benefit. Well, it's like, hey, here's the Torah. Hey, it's also Kaf Lamed. again, wheel within a wheel, different set of patterns. Red, Mashiach, the Torah man, who lived and died according to the itinerary of the 22 letters. That's Wa, Vav, the masculine suffix, Vav, the man. Yod, He, Vav, white linen robes of virtue and victory, behaving according to Torah and Mashiach. That's the next He. Gold, provision, salvation, rescue, help, health, wealth, wisdom, and the greatest treasure of all, having your voice actually heard on high by the one who can do something about your voice, whatever it was you said. Well, that's Shinayan. Now I'm appropriating these meanings of the letters out of just pondering and thinking. I'm just playing around, messing with the puzzle. You give a little kid Mr. Potato Head and you poke the different eyes and nose in different ways and look at that. That's not the way it was designed. Or you give them blocks and you just build blocks different ways. We're just messing around with the words.
Not so sure we can say Mr. Potato Head anymore. Just throwing that out there.
That potato guy. Oh, you can't even say guy. The potato the potato thing. Anyway, what great mystery might be found beyond the veil on the other side of the wall going through the chet? Well, if you don't go, it's all just a mystery. It's all just conjecture. It's all just dreaming. But how do you get through the chet? How does the Vav man on the Zion, the one side of the chet, how do you get through the chet to get to the other side? Well, gee, guess what? Look it. We have it written in the script. Won't focus. Anyway, it's written in the script. He gave us the alphabet. So we're coding all this stuff to the alphabet letters and reading the alphabet to come up with this stuff. Okay, so if Het is the castle wall or the dominion of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, wait a minute, didn't I say Het was death? The castle, the prison, the fence, the pasture, death, the kingdom of life. We're just reading into the letters. But if it's the castle, the dominion of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the blue, purple, red, white. So what I'm suggesting is the fact that these embroidery colors are actually his name. And if you read the colors, it tells you about his jurisdiction. So the 4 colors of embroidery on the white fence with the gold thread is making a declaration that this is the realm, the kingdom, the jurisdiction of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And all who enter are slaves of servitude. Tet, a full basket. Secure? I thought it was a full basket. What do you mean secure? Inaccessible except by special and personal invitation. Then I have written here, Kuf Resh Aleph. Kuf Resh Aleph is the root of the word Vayikra. It means to be called, summoned, invited to learn how to read Hebrew. Kuf Resh Aleph. It's the root of the word Karaite, as in a certain type of Jewish scholar. The Karaite order, they intense scrutiny on what is exactly written. Hey, Nehemiah Gordon, he's one of those guys, a Karaite. Yod. So I'm looking at Het Tet Yod, the dominion of Yahuwah, such that all who enter consign themselves to be slaves of servitude to him whose name is written on the gate. And you can only get in by special invitation, which is kara, it's to be invited or summoned. But once you're in, like you're in his basket, you're absolutely secure. And then the yod, that it's this, the suffix of the first person meaning my, it's this fist. So there's a little drawing of like King Kong's hand and the lady that was in it. So we who are in Yahuwah's hand are safe, the grabby hand, mine, zeal and pride of ownership. Well, that's Kuf Nun Aleph. Kana, 2 words kana, Kuf Nun Hey, which is maker, thus possessor, like the hand, but Kuf Nun Aleph is jealous, zealous, and fanatical. Yahweh says he's known as Elkona, zeal about the stuff of his, which is all this stuff, which is all the alphabet letter stuff, which is all the Moedim stuff, which is the Sabbath day stuff, which is the Mashiach stuff. He's Kuf Nun Aleph about his stuff, and he's looking for a people who will be Kuf Nun Aleph about it also. There's a verse that says that. I forget where it is. You can look it up. Anyway, The next letters, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, literally as a word means the power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. But Kaf, Lamed, Mem means put to shame. Woven into the Torah instructions, disguised as law. Why would he do that? If something so valuable as the Torah instructions of life and to be owned by him is personal possession, the pupil of his eye, why would he make human consciousness detest law so much? I'm suggesting so it would be rejected by many. Follow the instructions. That's the word tav wa, or vav, or excuse me, zadi vav, zadi wa. To man the crew, join the colors. Everything else is mutiny, alienation, yielding a death sentence. Do what he said or you die. You got thrown overboard, fed to the sharks if you're on a ship in the sea. Memnun means from the depths, the abyss, from desolation, from the womb of the grave. And I'm just reading into it different pictures that can be read throughout the letter sequence here. So Yeshua went into the womb of the grave, so that in the crypt of death, like the caterpillar in the chrysalis, Nun, reborn. So Shavuot, counting 49, 7 sevens, and then 50. 50 is the letter Nun, which is like Jubilee, which is the Yovel, which is jumping back out. So somehow Yeshua goes into this death state as a Vav man, a caterpillar man, to experience this depth of death, and then Nun turns around and jumps out. So I can read the alphabetic sequence and says, there's something about Mem Nun, like a womb of birth, reborn, a new man, a new type of man unto the Resh status. So for the New Testament to say, oh, he went down into the depth of hell, grabbed the pitchfork out of the devil's hand, took the keys, poked the devil in the rear end with the pitchfork, ran away, ha ha, I got this now. I'm just throwing cartoon versions. It's like, where do we know what Yeshua did when he died? Where do we know that? Well, Peter said, wait, what? Read the alphabet letters. If Pilate saying, behold this man, written in Latin, ecce homo, written in Hebrew, hine et ishu, perhaps, that's Havav Zion. Who's Havav Zion? Why, the Bet Gimel Dalet, the one in disguise, the one wrapped up in human form, human garment, to have that garment ripped to shreds, killed, Zion, put into the tomb, Het Tet Yod, though put to shame and calamity, Kaf Lamed Mem, he will have the power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. What all? All this stuff that wham throws him down into the Mem, like the caterpillar turning into an aqueous slurry, so that Nun, he could jump back out, diversified like the wheat that dies, that turns into multiple types of wheat. I'm just reading the story in the sequence here. Spreading a wing, lifting out, blossoming, Pezadi, resurrecting, ascending, Kuf, Resh status, unto the future potential of humanity. That's in the alphabet. So the bottom, going through death, bottoms out at Mem, but then comes back out. So there's a type of turnaround, which is a Nun, which is a sprout, which is a Jubilee, which is a Pentecost. 50. That's Greek words, Pentecost, but that's Shavuot, Bikurim. But then the Nun is brought to this fullness at Zadi, but the real, that's like butterfly crawling out of the chrysalis, but the real essence of that event is the Resh, unto Sheen. I'm just trying to say, as you're looking at these letters, you can read this flow, but Mem is down at the depth, Mem Nun. Well, Sheen Mem Nun, that's the word oil. Mem Nun represents the festival of Shavuot, according to this Mishkan pattern. It's the laver, like a womb in the Mishkan pattern. It's the beatitude that says, blessed are the meek, so they will inherit the earth. Someone the other day said they didn't recognize the word beatitude. It comes from Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5 is a list of different blessed are these people, blessed are those people, and it's a list that fits the pattern also. But anyway, let me go on. This is top of page 8. Memnoon, from the depths, the abyss, from the desolation, looking at the grave as a womb. So the grave is not the end. Death is not the end for human existence or of human consciousness. We're told in the scripture that after our death, there's a day of judgment and a possible second death, or the possibility of everlasting life. And yet a lot of people don't know that. Never been told that. Life is reborn, sprouted, restored, rejuvenated, recalibrated to a specification beyond measure, beyond any means that we have to measure what's on the other side of the het, or the other side of the mem, or the other side of the zadi. We can't calibrate that. Our consciousness is not fit other than through these letters. Memnoon is most easily pictured as a butterfly in its chrysalis. Nun Samic, as a word, means miracle, wonder, lifted up, personal, empirical experience. Samic ayin pei, multiply abundantly, spread your wings. Oof, ayin vav pei is the word for bird or wing, or just spread your wings. And Samic, being like an engineered structure, is the technical support for flying, or the design of an aircraft so that it can fly. Pei zadi means explosive, open mouth, but yet it follows the ayin. Ayin zadi means open the eye or close the eye. So if pei follows ayin, then I can read that as, is it the mouth that's opening, or is it the eye that's opening? If pei just means that which opens, it could be referring to the eye. Just the way of reading the language, which is also the opening of words that come out of your mouth, which means set free, which is enlightenment, deciphering the hidden code, the discovery of the mystery, going back to Daniel 12. What was Daniel told to hide? If it's these words, this sefer, then that's right now. That's the understanding opening of the words opening, of the words of Yeshua opening, of the Mashiach coming out of the grave, of Israel coming out of the 2,730-year curse, the dispersion, the lostness, unto Zadi Kuf. Zadi, resurrection, restored to life after death, vibrant flourishing. So the word zitzi, like the fringes that we wear, to remind us that Yahweh gave a command. So that's why in this Mishkan pattern, the Zadi is blue, because it speaks of he who gave the command. The word Zadi Vav literally is command. Mem Zadi Hey means, is the word matzah, means not only the flat bread with his striped and pierced, but it's also means find out how to do something. How to do what? Zadi Vav, his command and instruction. So Mem Zadi Vav Tav also is translated as commands and instructions. So Zadi is coming back to his commands and instructions, because we have these words opened up, because we now understand, our eyes are opened up. The letter Kuf is the letter Q in English. Picture of a circle with a line, like a mushroom shape, like after Yeshua resurrected and wandered around on the earth for 40 days, he floated up into the clouds. There's the shape of the letter Q, the mushroom shape, the vertical line, and then the cloud, circle, pillar fire, pillar of smoke, question mark like the clouds, exclamation point like the vertical. Fantastic, solidified reality. That's like the exclamation point and the question mark. Kuf resh, literally as a word, means precious, dear, rare, honored, enhanced dignity. Kind of speaks of the Messianic era. The word Kuf resh sheen, putting those three letters together, means unicorn. Well, that's because the horn is solid, congealed. kufresh, like ice, like cold. And like, I'm just saying, if you read through the dictionary and you see these things, you got to figure how this stuff all works together. Why a unicorn? Isn't that a mythical beast? Isn't that some sort of fantasy story? It's a Hebrew word. Its last three is these three letters, kufresh shin. What's that telling us? What's it telling us? That's another part of the
Interesting little factoid about a unicorn. The original name for rhinoceros was a unicorn. So
only some have two, so it'd be a duo horn. I'm just saying,
there's an Asian rhinoceros that has one horn.
The whole idea of seeing these things and thinking about them and bringing these other things in is not a distraction. It's the use of studying. So go ahead. It's like, it's okay to let your mind wander these places. It's part of the study. So go ahead, Mark. Sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead and say what you're saying. The Asian rhino that has a single horn.
Yeah, that's all I was saying, is that when you think of the unicorn, I think that's probably where it was based on, because there is an Asian rhinoceros that has only one horn.
Well, the American whatever version is a horse with wings with a single spiraled horn. It's like, where does that come from? Well, there's a type of whale that has a spiraled horn. And who said it was a horse? Is the unicorn a horse? Is it a rhino? Is it a fish?
it's a narwhal. It's called
Huh?
a narwhal. It's called a narwhal.
A narwhal, that's right. The interesting thing, makes me think of Pegasus. Well, Pegasus, no, that's a Greek horse that we shouldn't. Wait a minute. I think the word is pe gimel ayin. Pega means to escape or run swiftly. Phew, I'm out of here. And Sus is horse. So the Hebrew word Pegasus literally means a fast escaping horse, which is a picture of Yahweh giving us deliverance from our enemies, you could say. So Pegasus isn't necessarily a mythical beast that we shouldn't have anything to do with. It's a picture of a promise that Yahweh gave us that is also synonymous with the word spelled nun, samic, and samic ayin. Just saying, it's interesting to sit there and plug in these things, and some things aren't as bad as we thought, and some things are worse than we thought, like having bacon on your cheeseburger. Much worse than we ever thought. Anyway, resh shin means poor beggar, but it also means empowered and authorized or permitted. It means freedom and ownership. Resh shin tav, literally as a word, means net, web, retina, a snare to catch or seize, but it also means to be beaten down to ruin or crushed. Shin tav, placed to stay, sit or set, as the foundation for weaving. So you build up a rack and you put strings across it. Now we're all set to start weaving, where the threads will stay right where you put them, having to do with being intertwined like a net. I'm just saying, these are words, you can see them right in the dictionary. Aleph resh shin tav, interestingly enough, if resh shin tav is a net or a trap, you put an aleph in front of it. Aleph resh shin tav means betrothed or desired as expressed. It's also, resh shin has to do with a venomous drink. So I can put these together and say only the purified survive the curse of some toxic. I have something here about Numbers chapter 5, which I didn't elaborate on. I can't remember offhand. But anyway, that's where the woman suspected of committing adultery was told to go to the Mishkan, the temple, take some dust, mix it, and if she was really guilty, but claiming she wasn't, she'd drink it and she would rot. Her flesh would putrefy. But if she was innocent, she'd drink it. If she was accused by her husband of being an infidel, lack of fidelity, untrue, but if she was actually guiltless, she'd drink it and nothing would happen. So it's like taking a vow, the number 7. It used to be, in the days of the United States, I've heard, that a man was bound by his word, shaking of his hands, or if you swear on a stack of Bibles, how many Bibles? Well, one Bible, you could still get away with lying, but 7 Bibles, oh man, you swear on a stack of 7 Bibles. And if you were lying, all hell would come down on your life. You've brought the curse upon yourself. Well, Yeshua said, let your yea be yea, your nay be nay. And if you're lying and you're sworn to tell the truth, you've brought a curse on yourself. So in a court of law, British law, American law, whatever, they say, swear to tell the truth. Yeah, okay, I swear, whatever. And then if you lie in the court, well, nowadays, so what? You got away with it. Ha ha, doesn't matter. Wait a minute. But if you swore to tell the truth, you're actually invoking a universal law, a universal principle that the Creator built into the universe. If you lie, commit perjury in a court of law, you're actually inviting all the evil intent that you meant for another person to be manifest in your own life. If you sought that this other guy should go to jail or pay a fine, and if you swear falsely, according to the terms of the Torah, you yourself are going to get that curse. You'll go to jail. You will pay the fine. But we don't even think that way anymore. So taking an oath, swearing a vow means nothing to us. But what Yahuwah built into the fabric of the universe as this big tapestry, whatever you do is going to come back. If you swear a vow and you break the vow, you're going to get the curse. And the curse is exactly, well, that's what the whole covenant with Israel was. Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. So even though we in our modern culture may think, yeah, whatever. He didn't change. And for an ideology to say it was nailed to the cross, it was done away with, it's no more, there is no law, woohoo! Well, that may not be true. And if you break your vow, you betray your oath, you contradict the terms and stipulations of the covenant, and then your life has horrible, terrible things happening to it, and you go, why is this happening? It might be because you broke the vow. It might be that you didn't live up to your word. And then you got to think back and say, what have I done? What did I say that I haven't fulfilled? What promise did I make that I didn't keep? Rack your brains to find it. And then go make amends. Gosh, hey, Ruach of Elohim, remind me, do I have some hanging burden posed upon me that I don't even know about, that I've failed to keep, that is driving my life? And here I thought I didn't know I was being driven by circumstances. I thought they were happening because it was the devil, or because it was just nature, or because I don't know. Hey, there's stuff happening that we don't know because we weren't taught. But it all goes back to, what have we said? What vow have we imposed upon ourselves that we thought was nothing because the culture around us made foolishness out of it? The concept of this venomous drink goes beyond just being bitten by a rattlesnake or drinking some sort of a toxin. Anyway, the word spelled Tav Aleph means come. Well, that reminds me of in the book of Revelation, didn't say the Spirit and the bride say, come? Come to what? Come to the wedding? Be the bride? Come to understanding? Ask for your eyes to be open like David did in Psalms 119, verse 18? So the man, the human, who dies to self, who surrenders the personal will, thus, in order to be liege to the commander, to follow his orders, his mitzvot, his zadi vav, his chet kuf, in order, that's the vav man submitting to the rule, the Zion laying his life down to submit to the chet of Yodeh Vav He, to become a resh status, to become a human being forevermore subservient to the will of a master, finds life, enslaved and obedient, Obed, Ayin Bet Dalet, working for and yet betrothed to Yod He Vav He. Ayin Bet Dalet is the word for worship, for servant, So we enter the kingdom to become his slave. It's also the word for slave. But the life that will be found is beyond calculation for its liberty and freedom and extent. We have no idea what we're signing up for other than it would be worth it. What an ingenious work, this whole picture. Chet Shin Bet is the word that means ingenious work. It also means to think, account, devised, planned, regarded, considered, counted, calculated, imagined, esteemed, valued, attached importance to, invented, arithmetical, figured out, and summed up. It's one of those words which is a synonym with ayin resh kaf, Eric as an Erictology once again, and shemen, shin mem nun, which is the word oil. This is chet shin bet. And it also means band, girdle, or something which binds. And interesting to note that in the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 13, John describes Yeshua standing there dressed in white linen with this band or this gold band wrapped around his chest. Well, that's a picture. Okay, Yeshua's all dressed up for picture day. He's showing himself, hey, look at me. I've got this white robe and I've got this gold thing wrapped around me. It's like, well, okay. But what's it mean? A band or a girdle is a chet shin bet. In Hebrew, why was he wearing it? We just said this is what chet shin bet means. So this is what Yeshua is wearing, this gold sash wrapped around him. It means to think, account, devised, planned, regarded, considered, counted, calculated, imagined, esteemed, valued, attached importance to, invented, arithmetical, which is mathematical, figured out and summed up. In other words, he's saying he's the guy who's figured it all out, planned it, made it, constructed, is running it, and it's all his stuff, and he's Kuf Nun Aleph about it. So Yod He Vav Shin Ayin is the name attached to the human who's self-determined to be bound by the ingenious work of the 22 Hebrew letters of the Ivrit Aleph-bet. Yeshua took up the challenge to run this course as a gamut of 22 obstacles. The phrase, I will run the course, literally is the meaning of the word earth, eretz. Aleph, Resh, Zadi. Aleph means I will, Resh, Zadi means to run, a gauntlet, a course. Yeshua is the embodiment of the word, which is the string of letters, the word made flesh, which means his earth experience had to be mapped to the entire sequence from Aleph to Tav of these 22 letters in exactly this sequence pattern. This is itinerary. The letter Aleph, used as a prefix when spelling, is self-referential of identity and intent. The letter Aleph is referring to the author or artist or architect of the following communication, which is the other 21 letters. So the how and the why and the who, by what means did Aleph become Bet, is not disclosed. The only information we have is the next 21 letters following Aleph. We're never told how Aleph became Bet, but we can talk about that. Talked about it before in other writings. We could do that sometime if you want, but there's this idea of how did Aleph become Bet? And it gets into all these other words and imaginations and stuff. But he gave us these 22 letters and human consciousness to subject these 22 letters in this sequence to the most intense scrutiny of sleuthing, detective work that we can possibly muster with the human consciousness that we were equipped with, which is itself a product of those 22 letters. Our human consciousness is a manifestation of the same sequence of those letters. So for any human to suggest that the being from the Aleph realm who was responsible, whoever it might be, that being responsible for the manufacture and the sustaining of this whole Bet dimension of this universe, including humans, did not or could not interject itself into this bet zone for its own purposes is insane. The being or the agent or the essence of the creative one, it, they, whatever, whoever is responsible for making this universe exist, to say it couldn't and it wouldn't interject itself into betness is ludicrous. It's insane. It's like, how dare you say that? What do you mean it can't, it won't? Your brain fathoming whether it could or would or should has nothing to do with anything. The fact that I can read Aleph, self-referential, is I am, I will, bet meaning the universe, and bet means to put it in material form, so I can read Aleph and bet is I will put myself into material form, gimmeling to the Dalet earth, birth through the Dalet of the Hay woman as a Vav man who would be put to the weapon Zion so that I could go into the death of humanity, down to the mem of the depth of death. Well, then it's entirely possible and even probable, because it's possible to read it as that. So if somebody says, anybody who thinks that the one responsible for creating the universe would put himself somehow, not telling us how, into human form, why, that person is a fool, that person is an infidel, that person is a heretic, that person is a whatever. I don't have to listen to that voice, because I can read it right here that it is the voice of the one who made and sustains this whole thing. So I can feel perfectly good that the creator of the universe, however and whatever he did to do that, is it a trinity? Is it a duality? Is it a unity? I don't know. It's locked up in the mystery. Maybe the one that created the universe is actually 22 factions, 22 factors, not just one or two or three. Maybe it's 22. I mean, there's 22 expressions. I don't know. All we have is these 22 letters. We're just trying to read the letters because that's what he gave us, and he gave us our consciousness to fit with it. Let me read that sentence again. How and why and who and by what means did the Aleph become bet is not disclosed, other than by the analysis of the 22 letters themselves, subjected to the most intense scrutiny of sleuthing we can muster with the very human consciousness we were equipped with, which is itself a product and manifestation of the very same sequence of 22 letters. For any human to suggest that the being from the Aleph realm responsible for the manufacture and sustaining of this bet dimension did not and could not interject itself into this bet zone for its own purposes is insane. Sanity is determined by the ability or resilience to process things rationally, which by definition, for the lack of any other objective standard, otherwise, is to think and process organized thoughts according to the meaning of the 22 letters, which is the basis of orchestrating human consciousness. So what I'm saying is, for the human mind to be able to think along the track of these 22 letters is sanity. To contradict what these 22 letters mean, by definition, is insane. And so for somebody to say that the sanity reads that the one responsible for this universe will come down in cosmological form, for them to say it's insane means they're defying even the logic of what the letters are saying. So according to the message encoded within the alphabet sequence, and according to the analysis which some humans have deciphered of its significance, why, then only a damned fool would refuse to acknowledge reality expressed by the interpretation and objective meaning of the 22 letters encased as Aleph Tav. And by saying only a damned fool, I'm not calling somebody a name. I'm saying if you don't deal with and wrap your mind around these 22 letters and save yourself by believing the life raft that was sent to you, then you will be damned to burn in the fires of hell, consumed, losing your life forever. And that would be a fool, according to the book of Proverbs, that only a fool says in his heart, there's no God, there's no Elohim, there's no superior power who's responsible for this place to which I'm answerable to and will be held accountable to give account of my life, what I do with my days, my consciousness. And if you don't reckon with the meaning of every one of these 22 letters that we were given, you will be labeled a fool and be damned to burn up in the fires of hell. The author of, that's a picture of the letter seen. The author of the Aleph-bet does exist and did communicate with his creation. The Aleph-bet exists as the very communication itself. The 22 letters, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zion, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samach, Ayin, Pei, Zadi, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Tav, is a package of the communique sent from heaven to earth. And for whatever reason and by whatever means, the letter sequence is the narrative of the encounter whereby Aleph actually becomes Bet-ified. In other words, if we want to know how did Aleph become Bet, it can also be read in the sequence of the 22 letters, like a wheel within a wheel. The divine hand of Yod somehow gave faculty to the 22 letters, whereby the entire universe was caused to exist by the speaking of his intent, which was encapsulated as a word or words, which are piecemeal fragments and shuffling of the components of that original word. In other words, the phrase Yahi Or is translated in English as exist light and as a demand to do so, but the words Yahi Or are just a reshuffling of the letters from their original sequence order into the phrase Yahi Or, which means exist light. The letters would have had to have been invented and given power before the command was uttered. So the alphabet sequence would have had to have been designed and built before the word was voiced to cause light to exist in the Bet zone. So the word Yahi Or was expressed from the Aleph realm to cause the Bet zone to exist. So the Aleph Bet had to exist before the universe was ever made. The letters would have to have been rationalized, ordered, and emplaced as fixtures in the Aleph realm before Bet could exist as their manifestation in this corporeal physical realm. The standard and measure of anything in the Bet zone must find its correlation in the Aleph realm. So the congruency of Bet with Aleph then determines what is rationality or sanity by definition. To build such a possibility into the system, such that something in the Bet zone could be incongruent with Aleph, is congruent or harmonious with the overall plan of Aleph's intent to allow Zioning or alienation or being cut off by death. In other words, when Aleph built the Bet, it included the possibility that instead of meshing and being perfectly fit, something was out of whack and couldn't fit, didn't fit, and if so, it was to be cut off and thrown away. Zion, put to the weapon. Yeshua said, my father's the husbandman, I'm the vine, you're the branches, you're supposed to bear fruit, and if a branch doesn't bear the right fruit or good fruit or edible fruit or usable fruit, the husbandman will cut off the branch and throw it into the fire to be burned. That's Zion. So he built into the whole system the possibility for incongruency, unfruitfulness. And if you choose to be unfruitful, or you don't choose to be fruitful, and you are unfruitful, or you do conduct wickedness, you will be cut off from the living and thrown into the fires of hell to be burned. That's Zion, that's Sheen. But it's part of the plan. Part of how the cogs fit. I'm saying this because some people don't believe these things. Before Bet ever came into existence, Aleph determined that the causal force to exist was wrapped up in various letters. Aleph, Hey, Vav, and Yod. Any combination of those words refer to being or existence. It has been said that Yod, He, Vav, He, Yahweh, means or refers to, how do you give definition to the inutterable name? It means he who is the maker and sustainer of all things, who causes himself to exist. Some people say that's what Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh means. Exodus 3:14 at the burning bush incident says, the voice said to Moshe, say, Ehyeh, sent you. Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey. That's not Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. It's pronounced different. It means slightly different because Aleph is first person and Yod is third person as a prefix to the Hey, Vav, Hey, or Hey, Yod, Hey, which means to exist. So in Numbers 6:22-27 tells us 3 times to speak the pronunciation of Yod, He, Vav, He, Yahweh, upon or over or connected like a yoke to his Bnei Israel. That's known as the Aaronic benediction. The children of Israel, in which case then I myself shall indeed so bless them. That's what Yahweh says. He says to Aharon, he says to Moshe, speak to Aharon and his sons, saying, this is how you bless my children of Israel. Say to them. And then there's the Aaronic benediction. But you never hear it in English. Well, because in English you can't say what he said to say in Hebrew. Yivarecha Yahweh vayishmareka, Ya'er Yahweh panav alecha, vechoneka Isa Yahuwah panav alecha, veyasem lecha shalom. In which case, I myself indeed shall so bless them. Words and letters not only mean things, but also cause and allow things to happen. Does the exact iteration of his name matter, or does it not? That we should presume to change the iteration of Yahuwah into Adonai, Hashem, or the Lord, or God, into a different vocalization and different meaning, and think that the effect should not be diminished? Why is it that the originator of speech and the spelling of words gives us an exact iteration, a quote to express exactly as described, wherein his name, whereby he refers to himself in grandeur, he states 3 times, saying, this is how you bless my Bnei Israel. The word Yahweh is expressed 3 times, and yet consistently we express the quote altered to suit our own self-interpretation to the degradation, the bringing of nothingness of his name. Just get rid of it. Say something different. Yahweh said to place his name upon his children. The authorities warn us not to. So no one ever does. Well, some people do. I just did. Some people do. The temple built in Jerusalem was to hallmark the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Yahweh, to the world. We were told to call out in his name, exalt that name, swear in that name, hope to that name, but no one does. Praise the name of. Never ever once does the scripture actually say the Lord or Jesus or our God or Adonai or Hashem. Those were all added by translators. In Joshua 5:14 and Daniel 10-12, an angel figure was referred to as Adonai, which is similar to the Spanish title of Don, meaning highly respected one. Every time it's written Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, but no one ever does say it. Why? Fake translations. Go to fake news. Fake translations. Other studies, easily accessed, will give you hundreds of verses in scripture concerning this topic. You can do your own topic research. Maybe it just doesn't matter. Do you ever wonder who hid the sacred name and why did they do it? Did you ever wonder why the Jehovah's Witnesses actually make such a big deal about the name? You ever wonder why rabbinical Judaism makes such a big deal about the name? You ever wonder where they hid the truth? Did you ever wonder in whose interest it is for us not to say the name pronounced something like I-E-O-U-A, the English letter vowels, I-E-O-U-A, E-A-U-A, Something like the word Hawaii spelled backwards. Hawaii, Iyawa. Why is it so similar to the name pronounced Yodhevave? Perhaps, as scripture seems to say, things will happen when the name Yahweh Zavot is invoked. He designed and built a system which responds to his name being spoken by humans. We've been lied to. Suppose it's a coincidence that the most accurate translation of Baal is Lord and Master. Dear Lord. That's English. But the word Lord or Master in Hebrew is the word Baal or Baal. The most often chastisement that Israel got was for Elohim Akrim, translated gods of others or other gods. Worship of the Baal, often represented by the obelisk sun towers, masculine deity of power, fortune, and good luck, a solstice icon coupled with the feminine fertility goddess of Ashtoreth, which sounds like Ishtar or Easter, which is a springtime equinox thing with eggs and ostrus and estrogen. Scripture speaks for itself. Ground zero is who are you talking to? The whole idea of ground zero is you're a human, you have consciousness, you're alive on the face of the earth. What else is going on around here? Who are you talking to? Is there a deity? Is there a responsible party? The Mishkan pattern is the 7-day creation story, and the Moedim of the Leviticus 23 established the testimony of the identity to whom we hail. So Aleph Tav is the micro utterance blip of the 22 letters. Aleph Tav, et, is the little 2-letter blip referring to the 22 letters in full scope panorama, hyperdimensional interactive expression of the identity and intent of the author. The fourth of 7 words written in Genesis 1:1, Bereshit bara Elohim Aleph Tav, et, Hashemayim va'et haaretz, spelled Aleph Tav. That word's never translated nor given interpretive value even in Hebrew. In the book of Revelation, chapter 1, chapter 21 and 22, Alpha and Omega would actually be Aleph Tav. The study of the Hebrew Aleph-bet letters is the study of the name Ehyeh and Yahweh. Study of the Hebrew language is worship. The study of the Hebrew language itself is worship, and it's prayer, and it's singing of praise to Aleph Tav, depending on which letter value equivalency you happen to appropriate to the letters. So to study Aleph Tav is not ox, house, camel, door, window, nail, though that's what it looks like if you appropriate an object value to the letters. The secret mystery of Jeremiah 23, 18, and 22 is spelled Bet Samik Vav Dalet, Besod. It says, who has been exposed to my mystery? Who's been exposed to Besod? The phrase Ayin Dalet Ayin Tav, translated until the time in Daniel 12:4, offers a key. Mem Pe Tav Chet. Yeshua is the door, the Aleph-bet letters are the Tav. Back to Jeremiah 23. Who has seen or heard his word? Who obeyed his word and heeded it? Let them proclaim my words to my people. Yahweh says, if you've been exposed to this mystery, proclaim my words to my people. That's why we're making these videos, fulfilling that command embedded in Jeremiah 23. That's what this site, this YouTube is all about. What did Yahuwah pronounce? What did Yahuwah speak? These Hebrew words. Go back and read Jeremiah 23. Talks about the new covenant. So this is the new covenant actualizing. Deuteronomy 27, 8-10 expresses the intent. Yahweh said to Moshe, you shall inscribe on the stones all the words of this Torah well clarified. So not only shall he write them neatly, they should be comprehensible and expressible. So wait a minute. When you find petroglyphs, like the movie series Patterns of Evidence, where they find artifacts of scrawlings that are almost illiterate, almost incomprehensible. Douglas Petrovich has interpreted them as being the Hebrew letters and this and that. Those aren't well clarified. So did a Hebrew write those? Or did somebody who says, oh, I understand the Hebrew's got some powerful words. They've invented letters and spelling. And so they sneak into the Hebrew group and they find these and they write them and scratch them on a rock and they bring them back and say, there's supposed to be some magic power in these words. How do we know with any artifact, whether it's graffiti, whether it's somebody practicing learning, or whether it's somebody who's grabbed the Hebrew stuff and ran with it thinking that there's some magical power in it? We don't know what these petroglyphs are. Moshe was told here in Deuteronomy 27, inscribe the words on the stones well clarified. That's why one of the reasons I don't give regard to some of these ancient antiques. Moshe and the Kohanim and the Levites spoke to all Israel, saying, be attentive and hear, Israel. This day you have become kinsman people. That's Ayin Mem, unto Yahweh Elheka, your Elohim. You shall hearken to the voice of Yahweh Elheka, and you shall perform all his Mem Zadi Vav Tav, his mitzvot, and his Chet Kuf Yod, which is commands and orders, which I command you today. Why doesn't the Christian church regard these words? Why don't the Muslims or the Hindus or the Buddhists? Because it's only Israel. So back up to Deuteronomy 26, 16 to 19, says, this day, Yahuwah Elheka commands you to perform these chok and these mishpat, memshim peitet. You shall shomer and osah, the aleph vav tav mem, with all your lamed bet, and with all your nun pei shin. I could translate that if you want, but you can do that. Look at Deuteronomy 26, 16 to 19. Aleph Tav Yahweh pronounces declaration today existing for you as Elohim and as halakah-ing, walking on his derek, and for shomering his het kuf and his mem zadi vav tav and his mem shin pei tet, and for listening to his voice. And Yahweh hereby makes declaration today to exist unto him as kinsman people. And if you can't understand what he's saying, we're not being very good kinsman people. You got to know what these words mean. You can read them in English or French or whatever other language, but only in Hebrew is the essence manifest. Segula, treasured, distinctive, acquired, adapted, fitted, conformed, singled out, and violet, different word than purple, as pictured as a cluster of grapes. A treasure.
Stop right there.
People.